We really are just products of our past experiences. Whether you know exactly what happened or not, whether you're ignorant or aware, a lot has happened since you were born. I was born in the year 2001. You're probably very close to my age. I'm 23 right now. There's been a lot of events that have taken place. Catastrophic, horrifying events that you were never really educated on. You might have heard it in the background on the news. You might have heard your parents arguing upstairs, but nobody ever really educated you on the issues that were entering your household as a child. This video will remove the veil that has been placed on you by your school teachers, society, and your parents so that you can finally understand what took place when you were a kid born in the early 2000s. For starters, you were alive during the largest economic downturn since the Great Depression, and you didn't even realize it. Your parents did a great job at hiding their exceedingly high levels of stress from you while you coped with video games, namely Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2. This was released directly after the housing market crash of '08. The banks lied. They told your parents that they can pay back the loans no problem. It started off with really low interest rates as a teaser, but then started spiking further than they can ever handle. People stopped spending so much money, and because of this, the economy was taking a huge hit. Their employers started laying people off at record numbers to cut costs. It was a rough freaking time to be a homeowner, a parent, or just a human being with a job. Nobody wants to go and tell their kids what's actually going on. They're just too young to even comprehend. Imagine that happening to you. You literally worked your whole life to make sure that your kids have an easier life than yours, and everything that you've worked for gets cut nearly in half. The house that costed $500,000 to buy now is worth $300,000, but meanwhile, you were just sitting there as a little kid, didn't really know much, going to school. One of your teachers stops coming into work because they get laid off for some reason. You come back to your bedroom playing with your Xbox 360 or PlayStation 3, and you hop on Call of Duty every single day. This game release was crucial. It was how young Americans coped with the housing market crash of '08. The tension, the stress that was released in every single household was then reflected into every single pregame lobby. Growing up with both working parents means that you spend more time by yourself. You have more time to do bad things like watching NSFW videos online and playing video games all day. That's a product of who we are today. It's probably why our personality is the way it is, why so many of us are really awkward in small conversations and we're really good at video games. The year is 2001. A horrifying attack takes place in New York, allegedly by an Islamic extremist group. I was born during that year into a Muslim family, so I couldn't really know, but from first-hand accounts of Muslims in America, they were being ridiculed, getting mean looks, and even being attacked by ignorant people, brainwashed by their televisions. During this time, the Muslims that were following Islam only for the culture were pretty much weeded out. They concealed their faith until it didn't even exist anymore. People went from growing out their beards to a clean shave. Ali went to Alex. Mustafa became Steve. Muhammad became Mike. And I understand their fear. Honestly, people in this country got guns. They don't like you, and they're really not all that smart. That's a risk. And mind you, this is a free country. Allegedly. Especially Muslim women. They're the flag bearers of the religion in the sense of their clothing. You can identify a Muslim woman from a glance, but not always the same for a Muslim man. This actually is one of the reasons they do cover up, as stated in the Quran. During this time, the real Muslims stood up. They defended themselves. They stayed firm. But the social Muslims, as I like to call them, blended in so well that not even they could tell themselves apart. 1 month later, the US invaded Afghanistan, planning to dismantle this extremist group, and 2 years after that, the US invaded Iraq.
After 9/11, we decided to invade Iraq under the pretense of Iraq having weapons of mass destruction, when there was no strong evidence of such.
Bottom line, there were no weapons of mass destruction. Going into Iraq may have been the worst decision any president has made in the history of this country. That's how bad it is.
Dick Cheney, before becoming vice president, was the CEO of Halliburton, one of the world's largest oil service companies. He became vice president under George Bush, and when our government decided to invade Iraq, Halliburton was awarded a $7 billion non-compete contract to operate Iraqi oil wells. Perhaps a slight conflict of interest here. Conservative estimates state that 300,000 Iraqi civilians lost their life in this war, and American taxpayers footed the bill at a tune of $757 billion. No weapons of mass destruction were found, which led to this soldier confronting George Bush.
Mr. Bush, when are you going to apologize for the million Iraqis that are dead because you lied? You lied about weapons of mass destruction. You lied about connections to 9/11. You lied about Iraq being a threat. You sent me to Iraq. You sent me to Iraq in 2003. My friends are dead. You killed people. You lied about WMD. A million Iraqis are dead. because you lied!
And this is just one war, not to mention the questionable wars we had in Syria, Libya, and Afghanistan.
George Bush himself, the president of this time, agreed that this was unjustified via a Freudian slip.
Launch a wholly unjustified and brutal invasion of of Ukraine. Iraq. Anyway.
And because of this event, the famous clip of a man throwing a slipper at George Bush's face came to be. He screamed, "This is a farewell kiss from the Iraqi people, you dog," and then threw a couple slippers at his head. George Bush responds, "All I can report is that it is a size 10. The press conference took place in Iraq, and the man was an Iraqi journalist. He was sentenced to 3 years in prison for assaulting a foreign head of state. Then the sentence was later reduced to 1 year on appeal, and after he served 9 months in prison, he was released for good behavior. After the horrifying attacks on New York, Congress passed the Patriot Act. This allowed the US government to increase their surveillance powers drastically. They were able to monitor phone calls, emails, track internet activity, and even force their way into people's homes, laptops, and even look at them from their cameras without them even knowing or the need of an approval from a judge. It allowed them to obtain tangible items from entities like businesses or houses without even needing the proof for a probable cause. It also allowed for the sneak and peek warrants, meaning that law enforcement could enter your home or your office and search without anybody knowing, and they'll only inform you after the fact. This bypasses the Fourth Amendment. The people that knew what was really going on stopped using open source software like Windows, for an example, and it's not even really Microsoft's fault. They were forced by the government. They had backdoors in almost every single closed source software that they could for maximum surveillance, and the end user would never even know. But the guys that did know wanted to have a more secure operating system that was away from this closed source Windows crap. So they changed to Linux instead. This is open code for the public to see. It's open source software, this way that no government entity could actually sneak in their code or force the owner of this code to sneak it in for them. One of the men working for the NSA about 10 years later is no longer able to keep this a secret. He thinks that the spying by the government has just gone too far. He plans a trip to China, saves the government spying software on a SD card, and hides it in a modified Rubik's Cube. He walks past security on his last day of work and disappears. To some, he's an American hero, restoring the rights of the people and revealing the hidden oppression of their government. To others, not so much. They see him as a national security threat that must be taken care of. His name is Edward Snowden. One of the software tools that he leaked is called XKeyscore. This is a tool that allowed them to search through nearly all private online activity, including emails with no prior authorization. One software, one search engine, and they can find everything from anybody immediately with no extra work needed. Edward Snowden is famous for saying, "When exposing a crime is treated as committing a crime, you are being ruled by criminals." He now lives in Russia under permanent residency.
People who say they don't care about privacy because they've got nothing to hide haven't really thought too deeply about the issues, because what they're really saying is that I don't care about this right. When you say I don't care about the right to privacy because I have nothing to hide, that's no different than saying I don't care about freedom of speech because I have nothing to say, or freedom of the press because I have nothing to write.
In 2006, an Australian reporter named Julian Assange created the platform Wikileaks. I recall hearing this on the news all the time as a kid, but I never really knew what was going on. This leaked some of the most terrifying government documents and exposed their crimes to the freaking world. The documents about the US in specific, and I'll have to be super vague about this here, I'm not going to say exactly what happened in these so I don't get demonetized. There was one video, for an example, of a US Apache helicopter ending the lives of unarmed civilians and reporters in Iraq. This video that got leaked by WikiLeaks is freaking gruesome, bro. The guys in the helicopter, it looked like it was a Call of Duty 4 killstreak missile that was coming down. That's the kind of view that it was. Try to use my words here. They were laughing in the helicopter. They were literally making jokes out of the people that they were destroying and making it rain on down below as if they were just playing a regular Call of Duty mission. It was gruesome because you're watching some of the darkest, nastiest acts take place while a bunch of men are like, "Oh, good job," and they're laughing about it. It was just gut-wrenching. And now everybody in the country knew. It was all over the news, it was leaked, and people stopped trusting their government nearly as much as they used to. That's what's actually taking place over there. The US soldiers in this video actually made an open letter apologizing for what they did, but I doubt they would have done it if this video wasn't leaked. They said something like, "We apologize to you, your family, and your community with awareness that our words and actions can never restore your losses," along with a few more paragraphs. It seemed very sorrow and heartfelt, but I doubt they would have written this if the video was never published. They also leaked Vault 7, which showed that the government agency was allegedly able to hack into cars, phones, web browsers, and even Samsung smart TVs, making them appear to be off when you press the power button, but in fact they would stay on and the microphone would continue recording even after you stopped using the TV. For reasons like this, YouTubers like Louis Rossmann don't even let their smart TV access the internet at all. They turn off all closed source apps and don't even download them to their own television. I agree with this in a sense because when you download Netflix, for an example, it's closed source. So in reality, you don't know what's going back and forth between your TV and their servers. Also, Netflix is smart about this too, which caused a lot of controversy. Unless you're using their proprietary app, even if you're paying for a 4K subscription plan, you can only watch in 720p if you're on the web browser version of Netflix. You only get the 4K that you're paying for when you are downloading their software that's closed source on your TV or device, and that's the only way that you can watch in high quality. As of today, May 20th, Julian Assange won his right to appeal his extradition to the USA. He'll now be able to fight this in court and not immediately get thrown in prison or somewhere even more dangerous for the rest of his life. These leaks have shifted the mindset of the general American public forever. Even my teachers in middle school used to always tell us, at least during this time, never trust your government 100%. Always have a little bit of skepticism and doubt whenever they tell you something as a fact. And I still use that towards this day. Speaking of middle school, I recall being terrified that the world was going to end in the year 2012. The Mayan calendar ended there, and for some reason it freaked everybody out. I even recall downloading an app on my iPod Touch 4 on the App Store that taught me how to live your life in a survival method or preparation for this crazy event that was taking place. The app had so many downloads and 5-star reviews. It was titled like 2012 End of the World, and it was just teaching you how to live during that scenario. Now, when the day, December 21st, 2012 came, I recall being in class, sitting down and just waiting for a meteor to strike the earth, but it never ended up happening. They either maybe ran out of space in their Mayan calendar, or they just had a start of a new year and that's how their cycle went. For some reason, everybody ate it up, and as a kid, I really fell for it. But after that happened and all my hopes were let down, or actually up in that sense, I stopped believing in everything that I found online. I stopped being so gullible after that day. I looked for evidence now. Proof to me why. I'll believe it, just bring me the proof. And I never got anything more from that. I spent most of my childhood playing PlayStation 3, but when they got hacked in 2011 and the servers were off for a total of 23 days, I was itching to get back online. But after a few days of the offline for maintenance, everybody knew that they were secretly just being hacked and didn't want to admit. And whoever these hackers were, low-key inspired so many young kids my age, and myself included, to learn hacking and to get into cybersecurity, either taking a dark route in life or becoming a white hat, which actually, realistically, most of these kids just became script kiddies that say, "Is Lucid crying?" and send a DDoS to your house, but can't actually really hack nothing for their life. Freaking losers. Apparently this happened because GeoHot jailbroke his PlayStation 3, Sony took legal action on him, which by the way, it's totally legal to jailbreak your items. You paid for it, you can jailbreak it. But they took legal action and the hacking community retaliated like crazy. They started off with non-stop DDoS attacks, infiltrated all of their sensitive data on their servers. They took the user data of 77 million PlayStation users. They stole their house address, names, emails, and a bunch of other secret information, and they took it all from PlayStation servers. Sony said that credit cards were safe, but we really don't know if that's the case or not. Now later, everybody thought it was Anonymous that was responsible for such a strong attack, but in reality it was Lulzsec. They came in and took full responsibility for the attacks of Sony. Now because of this, of being down for 23 days, Sony actually gave us some free games for the way. People switched to Xbox, and I got the game Infamous actually for free, which I would have never bought unless it was given to me, and that turned out to be one of my favorite games I've played in my life. I recall downloading Facebook while I was in middle school in the 3rd grade, and only one other kid in my class had an account as well. Our teacher found out and she was freaking out, telling us that we should never be on social media, and we said, yeah, sure, we're never going to go on it again, but we would use it every day, playing Farmville and messaging back and forth and all this stuff. I later on realized that social media was becoming a detriment towards society, and we kind of all know how this goes. I don't have to even explain it to you, but I will mention one thing. For some reason, and maybe I'm specific in this, but a lot of the people that I've been hanging out with in real life, my friends and family, haven't really been on their phones zombie scrolling as I'm speaking to them as much. Only in these last 2 or 3 years I've been noticing this. Maybe I'm just hanging out with good quality people, or they've all matured, but I don't really see it as big of an issue as I did maybe 3 or 4 years ago. If it's the same case for you, please let me know down below. I'm really curious to find out if society as a whole is becoming less addicted with zombie scrolling, or it's still as prevalent as it always was. Also, while you're down there, just hit the red button called subscribe. Hit that subscribe button. You know what I'm saying? Is it making a little effect right now under me as I'm saying this? The swine flu in 2000 2009 was a pandemic that I can only recall bits and pieces of. I was an 8-year-old kid. Nobody I knew in real life actually got it. My teacher would remind us to not touch anything when we left the class, especially the stair railings as we're walking down to the lower level of the school. It's either the swine flu didn't really hit my area too hard, or as a kid, I just don't recall it happening at all. But as I look it up online and I'm doing more research for the sake of this video, it looked like it was 2019 all over again. It looked like it was a big deal. Now this last point, I really have to bring up. It played such a big role on all of our lives. It changed who we are, how we look at people, how we talk, act, and think. It made us addicts. It was internet P. Now before our childhood, to find this sort of not safe for work 18+ material, you would have to go to a gas station behind a curtain and buy a magazine, pay for it, and then go home and then do your stuff in the bedroom. But nowadays, you have infinite access, unlimited at any age you are, as long as you have an iPad, which most of these 4-year-old kids do. I made a full video explaining exactly what you can do to make sure that this filth does not enter your household and that you can get this age restricted across the entire world, no matter what country you're in, especially in the USA. We're almost there. We got about 5 states so far. This shaped who we are more than anything that I've discussed in this video. Make sure that your nieces, nephews, and children never have to go through it, because all the suffering that you went through will not be for waste. Thank you for watching this video. Stay dreaming, stay lucid. I'm out. Peace. And also please subscribe. I really need it. Hit that red subscribe button down below if you're still here and you're watching this video and you like these sorts of videos that are really deep, long, in-depth dives of certain topics that can educate you on such a brain-dead platform that YouTube is becoming. Please subscribe. Thank you. I love you. Peace.